All right, I want to showcase two more games real quick here. Um I got one solo and one with Judge Badass, and so yeah, this one it showcases the Dark Elf Corsairs, which are considered amongst the weakest units in the Dark Elf roster, along with the Kharibdyss, which is arguably the weakest unit in the Dark Elf roster. But these are units I don't use very often. I wanted to see if I could pull off a W with them. So here we go. There's a light mage here, and Alariel the Radiant. Light mage has Net of Amantok, and then some Winds of Magic buffs. Alariel's got Foz, Earthblood, and some Star of Avalon stuff. Over here we have two units of archers. These are the Sister of Avalon variants, and then we've got Fireborn, Bolt Thrower, and then a front line of heavy infantry. So fairly elite army. So in the back, you're going to see some vanguarded Dark Riders. They're going to be making their way into the Bolt Throwers and shutting those offline. That's very important for keeping my fairly expensive Dark Rider or Black Art Corsairs online. And likewise with the Kharibdyss. The Kharibdyss is a large target. Right now, it's just eating shots from the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower, but you'll notice I've put Weisfan's Wild Form and Pon's Impenetrable Pelt. That's going to reduce the damage taken from things like the Bolt Thrower and the Sisters of Avalorn and so on. So I have notably shifted the Kharibdyss to the opposite side of where the Sisters of Avalorn are on, because those are definitely a huge threat to the Kharibdyss. Granted, I am going to be taking some damage from them with my Black Art Corsairs and my Witch Elves. So I did have these guys engaged into, I believe, a melee attack order, but because of the Net of Amantok, they were interrupted, which was unfortunate for me. Over here, I have the Black Art Corsairs getting in a couple chippy shots on the Swordmasters, but they're going to be countered by the presence of the Fireborn. So I don't have a whole lot of anti-large options. I do have one unit of Black Guard. I've got the Kharibdyss, and that's pretty much it. So the Fireborn are coming into this pocket here, but they are going to get baited, countercharged by the Dark Riders, Witch Elves, and Black Guard combo. I just released a video on this talking about how powerful that is. I also popped a Manticore. Meanwhile, I'm going to start sniping out the Mage of Light, because I don't want to have to deal with that Knight of Amantok anymore. And the Witch Elves, Dark Riders are going to get into the Sisters of Avalorn. So that's going to be a very costly situation for the Sisters of Avalorn to be in, to be caught up with these Witch Elves. I mean, they will be able to fight back with the Witch Elves, but that's certainly not where they want to be. Meanwhile, yeah, look at all the damage taken by this Mage of Life. Or light from the missile fire of these Black Art Corsairs. Over here, I sent the Kharibdyss into the Swordmaster's Hoth. It does have anti-large bonus, but that doesn't really matter. And at this point, my opponent just straight up surrenders, because his Bolt Throwers were offline, his Witch Elves or Sisters were rampaging, and he lost his Fireborn. So, very tough outcome for my opponent there. All right, I was just happy. I was able to pull off the win with the Corsairs. That's why I wanted to showcase that build. Next, we will show another one. This is with Judge Badass on my team, and we're going against two other players. This one, I believe, was a casual match. I don't recall if the previous one was casual or ladder, but anyway, it was a lot of fun. Okay, so for this one, I have again 6 units of Corsairs. I've got the 2 Witch Elves sort of acting as the glue to deal with anything that charges after the Corsairs. Blackguard in the middle is the bodyguard for the Supreme Sorceress. Supreme Sorceress has got the transformation of Karan, which, like you saw last game, just gives her access to the Manticore summon. And then I've got the Kharibdyss, who I can protect with the Panans and Weisfans. Weisfans busts weapon strength too, right? And the Kharibdyss has fucking high weapon strength, 500 damage with armor pen. So if I buff the weapon strength of the Kharibdyss, it's going to be mulching whatever it's fighting against. And also buffing the Black Guard is not a bad option either, because they also have very high weapon strength and a high model count. So it really just depends. But yeah, the Kharibdyss could be in tough here. In this one, we've got 2 Hell Pit Abominations. We've got a unit of Rat Ogres, another unit of Rat Ogres. So the Kharibdyss is definitely going to have its work cut out for him. The Black Art Corsairs, in this case, I have the rare, let's say, shooting advantage. So I'm able to chip down these rat ogres. I know whenever I'm fighting against Skaven, rat ogres for me are a priority target because they give the Skaven sort of mobility control. And whenever you take out your opponent's mobility, you're usually going to be able to win the game. Exception is perhaps against Doors because they're just so stalwart and annoying. But against every other faction, if you take out their mobility, then you control the flow of the game and you're probably going to win. Over here, Hell Pit Abomination is dived in. He's fighting in Witch Elves, Blackguard, and Corsairs. I've sent my Manticore to pin and put in a little bit of damage. Over here, the High Elves have started to shoot in at this blob, but this is something you see a lot from players. Like, and something that personally drives me nuts if they're on my team, they'll have like 2 units of Lothran Seaguard and they'll be like, or archers or whatever, and they'll shoot in and they'll think that that's providing enough damage, and then they'll have a whole bunch of inactive units which they think are just going to protect the Seaguard and the shooting units, and that puts so much pressure on their ally. Like if you look at the Skaven player right now, he's basically fighting 2 armies. He's fighting Judge Badass's army, plus he's fighting my army, while there's like 5 or 6 high elf units that are just off on the side, getting a good view of the fight. So over here, the Corsairs are chipping down the rat ogres, the clan rats. They will also be chipping down the Hell Pit Abomination. The Supreme Sorceress has used their Manticore summon sort of as sacrificial tar pits on the Hell Pit Abomination. Over here, Kharibdyss and Hell Pit Abomination going in tight. So in this case, the Kharibdyss is actually getting the better of the Hell Pit, it looks like, and this Warlock Engineer. I'm going to be force pathing him onto there. But the Hell Pit is fighting in a unit of Witch Elves and a unit of Dread Spears, so a tough situation for him to be in. Rat Ogres are going to go in there and support, but they don't really have optimal targets. I mean, they're best against heavily armored cavalry or infantry. In this case, they're fighting Witch Elves and Dread Spears, so not really where they want to be. Big Blade Wind's going to go down here on this unit of Fireborn, doing some decent damage before it veers off into the side. So a nice cast there from Judge Badass. And again, the Corsairs, they're kind of free to pick their spots. They can shoot in at Alaria, they can shoot in at the Fireborn. So it looks like they're just in volume of fire. They're doing okay here. Star of Avalorn's been popped to heal up the Hell Pit Abomination, which was losing pretty badly in the middle, but that baited out one of the more powerful high elf spells. Over here, Keek Headtaker is getting into fights with Pharaoh Manticore. So one thing I want to mention is against Skaven, you'll often find players will bring a Skaven Assassin, and having access to Manticore gives you an option that can take out individual entities. So Keek has is it Assassin's Trophy or Assassin Trophy Head, something like that. I'm trying to mouse over it, but it's so hard to do. He's like, yeah. Well, anyway, it's Trophy Heads. So that's going to give him like basically a debuff of like a hero, right? But Manticores aren't affected by that. So against Keek and against assassins, you don't really have to worry if you've got Manticores. Hell Pit Abomination is running away. Didn't want any of that Kharibdyss, and the Kharibdyss, White Lions, Malkith are just going to clean up this center pocket. Bounce Bar is dead even, because the High Elf forces are still relatively intact, but I'm starting to feel pretty good about the game at this point, because if you notice, all of the mobility has been chipped away. Fireborn are dead, the Hell Pit number 1 is dead, Hell Pit number 2 is running away and healing, which is probably a miss from us to not just ensure it gets escorted off the field, but this pocket is going decisively in our favor, and this pocket, we've got some hard enough executioners who are going to be able to cut up the spears, the White Lions, and other things, so I do think eventually that's going to turn our favor. And this unit of Swordmasters, I don't know what our opponent was doing, but they're inactive right now. Oh, there we go. He's just sprung them into action, but they are taking shots from the Dark Riders with repeated crossbows. So nice play from Judge Badass to recognize that and chip them down. Meanwhile, Keek Headtaker is running away. So leadership and mobility is becoming an issue for our opponents. There is Alariel providing overwatch in the sky if needed. She could probably pop a heal on Keek, but now it's just a question of finding our spots. I do have some Dark Riders on the periphery here, which can escort things off the field when they break, or put in some rear charges. It looks like I was bad with my micro in this game because they are inactive, but I've been busy, I guess, over on this flank, just chasing off a few things. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit here. Hell Pit Abominations being chipped down, lots of shooting. So really it's just, can we take out Alera? Can we take out these Sword Masters? Then there's not really any serious threats left on the field. There's White Lions and Seaguar, but those can be cut up by pretty much anything. And yeah, so Volume of Fire going into the Sword Masters. They get chipped down. And chop, chop, chop in the middle. Balance bar still even. But I do have Supreme Sorceress, and she gets in a chop on Keek, a little bit more shooting. He's going to break off and die. Warp Lightning comes down in the middle, and Kharibdyss has had all that it can take, but it's dealt with 2 Hell Pit Abominations, so I think it's more than earned its stripes in this particular matchup. It's granted not every game you're going to end up fighting against 2 Hell Pit Abominations, but in this one we did, and it paid dividends, so yeah, Kharibdyss, fun. Dark Rider is just going to deal with these slingers with their mobility. Kharibdyss not giving a fuck. And yeah. So Kharibdyss picked up 3 chevrons in that fight. So absolutely wrecking face. The Corsairs didn't do too bad. We got a couple chevrons themselves. Dark Rider's okay too. But yeah, this build was designed to bring Kharibdyss and Corsairs. And I had fun playing it, and it did okay. And Judge Badass did great. These Dark Riders were absolutely melting Swordmasters the whole game. The Manticore was keeping busy. Shades were pretty much able to do what they want, and the Hardcat F Executioners got into the high front line, so they were where they need to be. And over here, Alariel, I mean, she was high and dry in the sky for most of the fight, but once the Fireborn were gone, it was an uphill battle for the High Elves. Close fight, fun match. Thanks for watching.